Hello and welcome to today's video. Today I've chosen an article about South Korea and the education system there. We're going to read it through together as usual and highlight some interesting words. So let's begin with the first paragraph. The death of a young teacher in South Korea has sparked a wave of protests and demands for better protection from harassment by parents. Lee Min-so, 23, was found dead in her classroom store cupboard on July 17th after taking her own life. She had been teaching for just over a year at a primary school in Seoul. So in this paragraph, we have two highlighted words. The first one over here is wave. Now, like many words, this has multiple meanings. One of the common uses of this as a verb is when we greet somebody. So imagine you're walking down the street and you see somebody that you recognize on the opposite side. You may wave at them with your hand in order to attract their attention. Or equally, if you're sitting in a restaurant, perhaps, and you want to attract the attention of the waiter, you might also wave your hand. Also, wave is used as a noun. When we are talking about a physical wave, it could be, for example, the waves that we see when we're at the beach and it's a windy day and we see the water waves, the waves that are created by the action of the wind and the tides. When it's stormy, of course, the waves are much bigger. In this case, we're also using wave as a noun, but it's not actually the same as the waves we see on the beach. It's a little bit more idiomatic, this use. So in this case, we're talking about a wave of protests. Protests are when people are unhappy with something that has happened. Sometimes they go out on the street and they protest. And if there's a wave of protest, it's a little bit like when you drop a stone in the water and the waves spread out. They spread out all over the surface of the water. And this is a little bit similar here because this one event has created or initialized a wave of protest that spread all over the country. So let's move on and look at the second word here, harassment. Harassment is a noun. The verb form of this is to harass. And this is actually a very similar concept to bullying. You may be familiar with the word bully. A bully can be a person, usually if we're talking about school, it's usually one of the bigger, stronger people who, let's say, picks on or victimizes other people in the class. He may harass them. He may ask them for money or use violence for intimidation. Well, harassment is a little bit similar to that. It's if you're harassing somebody, it means you're doing something to them that they don't like. Perhaps in this case, the harassment is coming from the parents, as we see here. So the parents were harassing the teacher. In this case, they were calling her very often and complaining about her treatment of the children. Okay, so let's continue reading the article, the second paragraph. According to her diary entries and text messages, she had been under constant pressure and stress from parents who complained about her handling of various incidents involving their children. One of the cases involved a pupil who slashed another child's head with a pencil. She had received late phone calls and messages from the parents accusing her of negligence and incompetence. So let's kick off this paragraph with the word stress here. Stress is a noun. It's an abstract noun. It's not something concrete that you can touch. It's a concept. And in this case, what we're talking about is related to pressure. So imagine you have a high pressure job, a job with a lot of responsibility. let's say, for example, I don't know, you're a doctor, a very busy doctor in a busy hospital, then when you're doing this kind of job, because you have a lot of responsibility and you're very busy, you're going to be under constant pressure and you're going to feel stress. You are going to be stressed. If we add an ed ending there, we can make the adjective. So we would say, I am stressed, or he is stressed. And we can also make the adjective to describe a situation with the suffix full. So a situation can be stressful. So if you're under stress, if you're experiencing stress, if you're in a stressful situation, you're not comfortable, you're not happy. It can make you depressed. You can suffer from a thing called burnout, which is when you become extremely tired and weary because of the stress that you're under. So in this case, the stress she was experiencing came because of her job and because of the parents complaining about her handling of the incidents involving their children. So let's move on to the final two here in the paragraph. We have negligence. The adjective form of this is negligent. So a person is negligent. Negligence is the abstract noun, the concept. So if I'm negligent, it basically means I'm not doing the tasks or the things that I should be doing. I am neglecting. That's the verb form, to neglect. I'm neglecting my duty. So let's think of an example for this one. Well, a simple example could be, if I have a garden, if I have plants, obviously I want them to live. I want to look after them. In order to make them live and thrive, I have to water them every day or every week. If I neglect to do that, then the plants will die, right? So if I'm negligent, it means I'm not taking care of the plants. It's almost the opposite of to take care of or to look after. There is a common use of the word in medical context. Medical negligence is when a doctor or a surgeon is not doing their job properly, and because of this, a patient may suffer the consequences. They may get ill or they may die because of medical negligence. Okay, so let's move on to the final word here. We've got incompetence. Incompetence is, again, an abstract noun. A person can be incompetent. And if you're incompetent, it's kind of related to negligence in that you're not doing your job well. Maybe you're not able to do your job well if you're incompetent. Perhaps you just don't have the ability to do it. So whereas negligence is more to do with not paying attention or not following the rules, incompetence perhaps is more to do with your innate ability to do that job. Okay, so let's move on to the next paragraph. Her death triggered a massive outcry from teachers across the country who say they are frequently harassed and threatened by overbearing parents who exploit a child welfare law that can suspend teachers for child abuse. The law, passed in 2014, is vague and can label any disciplinary action or verbal reprimand as abuse. Teachers say they are afraid to intervene or discipline their students. One of the protesters, Kim Jin-hai, said she joined the rally to call for change. We are all suffering from the same problem, she said. So the first word we have highlighted in this paragraph is the verb trigger. This is a regular verb, so in the past it's triggered. Trigger is also a noun, however, and it's a part of a gun or a weapon that you pull when you want to fire the weapon. So in a similar sense, when something triggers something, it basically causes it or starts it. So in this case, the massive outcry was triggered by the death, the unfortunate suicide of this teacher. So the death, the suicide, triggered the outcry. It caused the outcry. or the protest. In a similar way, if you're ever in the mountains in the winter, and there's a lot of snow on the top of the mountains, very important to be careful because you could trigger an avalanche. If you make a very loud sound, or if you go into an area that is unstable, this can trigger the snow to start sliding and falling down the mountain and cause a big avalanche. Okay, so let's move on to the second word. We've got outcry. And this is obviously connected with trigger in this sentence. The death of the teacher triggered a massive outcry. And you may be able to guess that this is when people are not happy, because it's basically composed of two words. The second word, cry, is what babies do when they're unhappy, right? Or what people generally do when they're unhappy or sad. They cry. So an outcry is when people cry out. So the verb is actually the opposite way around, to cry out. And to cry out is basically to shout. And an outcry is when people are unhappy and they protest. They go to the street, as we can see in the image over here, and they express their anger in a public way. Okay, so the final word we have here in this paragraph is joined. It says here that one of the protesters said she joined the rally. She joined the rally. So you join something. The basic meaning of join is to put two elements or two parts together. So for example, if you are making something from wood, if you're a carpenter, you need to join the different parts of, let's say, a table together. You've got the flat part of the table and you have four legs. You have to join those together, usually by using something like a piece of metal, like a nail or a screw, or perhaps glue. You're joining two objects together. Similarly, if you are joining something, you as a person are joining an organization, you're becoming part of that organization. So I can join a gym. I pay a monthly amount of money. I can attend that gym. I can join that organization. Or sometimes people decide to join political parties. That means they become part of that organization. In this case, the teachers, some of her colleagues and teachers from around the country decided to join the protest, to join the rally, in order to express their anger about this law. So let's move on to the final paragraph. On Monday, tens of thousands of teachers went on strike and rallied near the National Assembly in Seoul, wearing black and holding signs that read, "Stop Parent Bullying." They demanded a revision of the child welfare law, a collective grievance system, and more support from the government and the education ministry. The government has responded to the teachers' demands by promising to consider an amendment to the child welfare law and to introduce new policies to help teachers manage classroom behavior and deal with abusive accusations. So we have three words in this final paragraph. The first word is strike. Now, as a verb, to strike something is quite similar to hit. It's a word that's actually used in sport, in the sport of baseball, the American sport. When you strike out, it basically means that you've tried to hit the ball, but you've missed. If you strike somebody, it means you're basically hitting them. So if two people are fighting, they may be striking each other. But in fact, this usage here in this sense is a little different. We're not talking about physically hitting anybody. This is connected with the workplace. So if employees are unhappy with the conditions, with their work conditions, typically with their pay, maybe they want to increase their pay or change their working environment, then they may finally, if negotiations don't work, they may finally decide to go on strike. So that means that they refuse to work during a certain period. Could be days or weeks. Sometimes strikes continue for a long time. People repeatedly stop working, and sometimes they go to the street and they protest in a public way. And during this kind of action, usually there's some negotiation between the two parties. Could be between the workers, the employees, and the bosses, the employers. In this case, of course, the teachers went on strike because they were very unhappy with their working conditions and also the death of their colleague. The second word, it's relatively easy because we've already really mentioned this. At the beginning, we had harassment, and I told you then that to harass somebody is actually very similar to bullying. So when somebody is somebody in authority, for example, is bullying somebody in the workplace, they're giving them orders and treating them in a bad way without respect. That's bullying. And finally, we have the word grievance. And this is a word, it's a noun. If you have a grievance, very similar to complaint. If I have a grievance about something, it means I'm not happy and I want to express my unhappiness by complaining about that. It's quite a formal word, so you don't see it in many different contexts, particularly in formal contexts, for example, employment. Usually organizations have a grievance system whereby if an employee is unhappy about something, perhaps they're being bullied, they can go to a particular person in that organization and express that grievance that they have. Okay, so that's it for today's video. Thank you very much for watching and listening and reading. If you've enjoyed the video, please like it and subscribe to my channel to get notified about new videos. It really motivates me to make more. Thank you, and until next time, goodbye.